a train come. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All right, folks, you are listening to Nichols Live. And I am Larry Nichols, or whatever is left of me today. Still having a bit of a puny down period, so I have asked Dr. Greg Martin to come on with Alden and I. Greg, are you there?
I'm here, Larry. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to come on with you and Alden today. It's always a special time when we can be together and talk to the audience and or just talk to one another. So
well, do me a favor.
Do me a favor. Circumstances.
Yeah, do me a favor, if you will, buddy. In the interest of saving me a little bit of breath, would you give out the listen line number and how they can listen to us?
Absolutely. Please. Absolutely. We'd be honored. If you'd like to listen in today, if you're not listening already, it's just dial in area code 401-283-6754 and make sure you press 1 for channel 1. That's the Oldies Radio. I'm sorry, that's Leading Edge Radio Network .com is another way that you can listen. And today's call-in number, don't call just yet. Let's give that just a few minutes if we can. We've got some business to get out of the way today. But that number is 501-499-6022. And then if you would like to text Larry, which that's always available, that's area code 440-897-0611. So tell your friends today to listen in. I believe that despite the fact I'm on air with Larry, it's going to be a great show. And every day that we have Larry on a live show is wonderful. And we just thank God for you, Larry.
Okay. Well, listen, folks. The reason I asked Greg to come on is, as most of y'all heard yesterday, I was having a bad day and it got a little worse last night. But I'm trying to rebound, trying to get back up to my fighting weight. Trying. Don't know if I'm going to make it, but I'm trying. I want to talk about a little bit of the news that's happened today. Number one, the Supreme Court tied on the decision having to do with Obama's presidential special order forcing states to take some of the refugees. You know, it's a sad state of affairs, guys, when there's two things that make me feel safe. One is when Congress, both houses, are not in session. And then the other is what we see when the Supreme Court is at a tie, because at a tie on the Supreme Court, it reverts back to the lower court under it. So in the case of the refugee thing, the the Fifth Circuit Court ruled that Obama's executive order was beyond his power and stopped it. So the good news is that part is at least stopped. Now, I saw Obama come on in a press conference, and he vowed that he would adhere to the Fifth Circuit for now. But I'm going to tell you what he's going to do. I'll just tell you. He is going to go ahead, and he's searching. I'll bet you $100 that I do not have. He is searching right now for his edictorial way of doing it anyway. Now, what does edictorial mean? It means that when he is blocked in our government form of the way things work, the constitutional way things work, then he simply goes at it another way, and he just uses an edict. In other words, he would tell, for example, ICE or the Border Patrol. He would give an order to them, and they would make it a part of their rules. You're not going to do this, this, or this. Whoa. So that's what he's going to do. He's searching to do. The other thing is the sit-in by the Democrats. Now, guys, what was that about? It was about gun control. Gun control. And I got tickled at Louis Gohmert, Republican. He was there screaming it out at them. Why are they not dealing with legislation having to do with Islamic terrorism? And of course, they shouted him down. That's why I know we are in so much peril right now. Right now. When our Congress, in light of all that's happened, in light of the fact that we are on a war footing with at least ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the Muslims, we still refuse. We refuse to go on a war footing to protect ourselves. Now, the good news is the sit-down's over, or sit-in, or whatever. The reason it's over, by the way, because they wanted to go home for their recess. But don't doubt they're going to come back and try it again. You know, Greg, that's how this works. They'll sit there and try. Now, I've tried to teach this for years. Folks, they'll come at you with a bill, and let's just call it the steamroller bill. In this case, the gun control. And it fails because the people don't like it, because when they look at it, if a bill were titled steamroller, people go, well, that's a bad thing, being steamrolled. So what they'll do if it's defeated is they'll back off, leave it alone for a few weeks. Then they'll just simply change the bill to the title in this example of Ferris wheel bill. Everybody loves a Ferris wheel. Now, inside the bill, it's exactly the same as it was under the steamroller title, but they just changed the name. And they come back, and the people don't rise up, and then they pass it. It happens over and over and over again. So what we have to do, and Greg, I know you're there in Texas, what we have to do is instill states' rights to our state legislators. States' rights. To be honest, when it comes to things that affect the state, like in this case of Texas, you know what? The governor and the court system within the state of Texas is what should rule. The Supreme Court has no reason to involve itself in a sovereign state's activities. None. But nobody pushes that. Nobody pushes it. And to be quite honest, the mistake states make is when they do pass legislation at the state level and it's tested through the state legal system, then inevitably it is filed again in federal court. When it goes to federal court, of course, that's when we get beat. So the answer to that is don't go to federal court. If I had anything I could say to the governors of this nation, to the state legislators of this nation, it would be stay out of federal court. Stay out of it. Because when we go there, that's when the system wins again. So
well, that's very true. That's very true, Larry. And you know, federal court, you and I have certainly had occasion to practice in federal court. And, you know, I know attorneys who are deathly afraid of federal court. So, you know, if they're telling you to stay out of federal court, that's probably pretty good advice. And, you know, you and I are not practicing lawyers by trade, but we've had to ply the trade a little bit, you know, on the civil side. But without a doubt, federal court is not for amateurs. It's not for the faint of heart. But certainly, you more than prevailed in your encounters, and so did I.
Just so that people know, 2 people have been before the United States Supreme Court pro se, meaning representing yourself. One was Davy Crockett, and the other was me. He went once and lost. I went twice and won. It's hard in that federal court, folks, to represent yourself. And then when you get in federal court, if you have to have an attorney, it costs a fortune to do it.
Yeah, anywhere from $400 to $700 an hour, and that's if you're lucky. It can get a lot more expensive than that.
And if you have to go through the appellate process, when you get an appeals attorney, now you're up to $1,500 an hour. Then when you go to an attorney to practice before the Supreme Court, you're looking at anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 an hour.
And that's why they say that nobody wins in litigation except the attorneys. If you can avoid it, do so at all costs.
You know, in one of my appellate briefs, in this one I was doing with the 8th Circuit, I believe it was the 8th Circuit out of New Orleans. When I went into that court, folks, it was pretty well loaded against me. And I had made about every one of the judges in that appellate court mad. And they expected to rule me down. Just right away, just boom. They were just going to close the door on my appeal. The first time I filed it, I was thrown out. Do y'all know why I was thrown out? Because my margins on the side of the page, on 3 of the pages, were 1/4 of an inch off. The margins. You see, when you go into appellate court, you've got to use what they call their style, meaning it's got to be set up. The appeal has got to be written exactly the way they tell you. You have to put tabs on every part. I mean, you've got a protocol you have to follow exactly.
And let's not forget, Larry, you also have the Courier New format that has to be utilized, or the particular format that they request, and the right font, because they're not going to accept anything other than what they will accept.
That's right, and you've got to know those rules. But now, the reason I tell you about that appeal, that experience in the appellate court, is because I went in pro se representing myself, and I was actually doing a trick play to make myself be a party to a lawsuit where a friend of mine was being prosecuted. But now I had no standing in the case, so I just lied and made up a way that I would have standing. And of course, they didn't want me to have standing, so they ruled against me, and that's why I had to go to the appellate court so that I would be allowed to have standing in the case. Well, they wanted all of this stuff. When they got my appeal, they were flabbergasted. Because what I did in my appeal was, it was titled, "It Should Not Be This Hard." That was the title of my appeal. Should not be this hard. You see, I don't believe our founding fathers, Greg, Alden, and all of you, I don't believe our founding fathers set this country up to where we could not represent ourselves in a dispute in a court of law. They didn't. As a matter of fact, our founding fathers had 2 classes of people that they refused to allow into court. 2. They wouldn't even not in court, they wouldn't allow them into Congress. 2. You know what they were, Greg? You know what the 2 classes of people that they would not allow in Congress were?
Well, I'm going to say tongue in cheek. This is for a laugh. I'll let you do the education part, Larry. One would be politicians, and the other one would be lawyers.
You were close. You were close. there were two classes of people not allowed to serve in Congress. One was barristers.
Right.
Now, barristers was the name in that day from the old English law. That's a lawyer. They said a lawyer adds nothing to society. They don't grow anything. They don't make anything. All an attorney does is take. That's all they do. And if they ever got in Congress, then it would be basically, my words, a license for them to steal, because they would write laws that benefited them and their industry. The other was witches. Witches. Now, we have already violated the first. And it looks like, again, our founding fathers were exactly right. Now, when you look at politicians, guys, nearly everyone you see is a lawyer. And because of that, today, if you're an American, white, middle class, average person, there's one thing made abundantly clear. When you go into court, likely as not, you're going to lose. We have no protection, none. Now, the minorities and all of those people, they've got every kind of protection under the sun. We have none. And that's because the attorneys have got it to where they write the laws. And guess what? Criminals have all the laws under the sun protecting them. We don't. Criminals have rights that we don't have. And by the way, a little side note here, if you think the rules in a courtroom are you're presumed innocent until proven guilty, if you walk into a courtroom believing that fairy tale, you're going to get tagged hard. Remember this, whenever you go to court, Larry Nichols told you. Remember, Larry Nichols told you this. When you go into the courtroom, the only one that don't lie loses. And most average people, when they go into the courtroom and they're put under oath, don't lie. But I assure you, everybody else is. Attorneys lie, judges lie, prosecutors lie. That's why you lose. That's it.
Absolutely. And Larry, where people lose their cases in most instances, most of the time, cases are won and lost, not at trial, but they are won at the discovery level, such as admissions. And, I learned a great litigation style many years ago. Well, not that many, but far enough to say many. You drown them in paperwork. If you have to win your case when it comes to court, or you've got to have a jury decide it, your lawyer may not have been good enough, or your discovery may have been a little lacking. But the other thing that, and hopefully none of our listeners out there have pending court cases, and we're not giving you any legal advice, mind you. Legal education is not legal advice, so we can't be hung out there for unauthorized practice of law, which we're not in the business to do that anyway. But the bottom line is that if you really want to win a case, and you have a case, you win it on good discovery, and you also win it by knowing what the rules of that particular court are. For example, federal rules of civil procedure in federal court, etc. And then a lot of people don't realize that, if they have an eviction or something and they go to JP court and they miss that eviction hearing, they think, oh, well, I'm done. No, actually, you could, under your legal rights, you could appeal that at the next level. So a lot of people do tend to ignore their legal troubles, or they go find an attorney. But I think you have to be very careful in both instances. And Larry, I wanted to interrupt for a second and give you a second to catch a breath there. You recall the states' rights website that was put together by one of our friends? Is that something you want to give out today, or do you want to leave that for another time?
You can give it out if you've got it.
Yeah, it's www.usstatesrights.com. I'll give that to you again a little slower. That's just go into your telephone or your computer, whatever you're browsing on, preferably after the show. But it's usstatesrights.com. And you'll see a beautiful picture of Larry on there, and just above him, a little rendition of George Washington. So we haven't given that out in a while, but it's a good website put together by a friend of the family, you might say. So.
Yep. So back to my appeal. It shouldn't be this hard. I did an entire appellate brief talking about the things that our founding fathers never intended. For example, you should be able to simply state your case. You should. You shouldn't have to go by this legal dictionary of words you've never heard, don't know the real meaning of. You shouldn't have to follow every kind of rule that makes you jump through every hoop. It wasn't meant to be that hard. Our whole form of government was never meant, y'all, to be this hard. We were set up originally, foundationally, we were set up to be protected and to honor God and to know all things come from God, not from man, come from God. And then we were set up so that we had a very, very small central federal government. And the tasks set forth for the federal government were very exact, very simple. And the majority of the things that are supposed to affect our way of life were to come from the individual states. And they did that for a reason. They knew if you ever grew central government, then central government would end up being what they had just come out of. They had a king, and the king ruled, and it ruled everything. And what you did in your area, in your part of the country, what was important for you, a king, wasn't important to him. So you had no say-so in the things that needed to be done for you to grow or prosper or just to live. So they set it up. Our government was set up specifically to handle money, to be the creator of the money, and to defend this nation. But it wasn't to defend it by building this huge, huge, huge army that we couldn't afford. What the federal government was to do was to form a basic army, but then in case we were attacked or invaded, like 1812, the bulk of our army would come from our well-trained, well-disciplined state militia. Then the militia would be called up.
Larry, I know we need to go to a commercial break here.
Mm-hmm.
Just got that word. You probably did too. Before we go to that commercial break, just so we can kind of close this segment a little bit, the former governor from your state, Mike Huckabee, had something pretty interesting to say on that. He says, quote, and this is on the U.S. States Rights Initiative website, or usstatesrights.com website. He said, quote, "I will not acquiesce to an imperial court." He says, "We must resist and reject judicial tyranny and not retreat," end quote. So with that, it is time for our first commercial. And I would like to say, I know a lot of times Larry does these, but I'm going to open this up. this particular commercial and say, would you please do the network, myself, our listeners, and above all, Larry and his family, a tremendous favor today? Will you do something that maybe we haven't been able to do in a while? And that is, let's do something really special today for Larry. Let's make sure that before this show is over, at least 15 minutes, if possible, before it's over, I'm going to ask for Larry, and I'm going to ask you to do this not in my name or Larry's name. I'm going to ask you to do it in Jesus' name, if you can. I'm going to ask you to help Larry get the funds he needs today, not after the show, not 5 minutes before he has to go to the treatment. I'm asking you to do it during the show today. And I try not to ask our audience, you do so much. We love you so much. We know how much you love Larry, and you're loved back, and that's why we're here today. We're going to be here for you, but help me do something for Larry today. Will you raise those funds for him well before he gets off the air? I know it is sacrificial, but, the Bible tells us that when we've done it unto the least of these, my brethren, we've also done it unto the Lord. So it is the Lord that will repay. That's what the word says.
Very good, Greg. Thank you. And folks, I do need it. If you can, go to PayPal and then go to Nichols Live at AOL.com. Nobody's dinged it yet, but maybe you will. I hope you do, because it's kind of tough right now. But anyway, our government, does anybody know what amount of the money our government was never to exceed, never to cost? 5%. Our government was never to amount to 5% of the economy. Never. And if it got close to that, we were to shut it down. Lord, look at us today. So that appellate brief, I simply just reflected on what we were supposed to be. And the legal system was of the same. It was supposed to be simple, where one man could post his grievance against another and another guy could defend himself. And believe it or not, there was a time when it meant something to say that you're innocent until you're found guilty, proven guilty by a jury of your peers. Well, today, just the charge makes you guilty. And the way it works today, I happen to know, when you're charged, it's the front page of every paper in the free world. When you win, a retraction is put back in the back of the paper in a little 1-inch square little article back by the want-ads. And that's why so many people fear just the lawsuit, because the lawsuit or the criminal charge makes you guilty to 80% of the people in this country. And then even when you prove you're innocent, 50% of the country still thinks you did it. You never get away from it. You never lose it. That's how far, Greg, we have come fundamentally away from what we're supposed to be. We have. Now, our job, yours and mine, all of you, our job is to use this time right now that we're in, this day that we're in. That's why if I'm sick, it don't matter. I'm going to be here. I mean, if I can at all, I'm going to be here. Greg and all of them are going to do the show without me today, but I wouldn't. I'm coming. That's how much I believe that this day that we live now is the time when we either give our country up for good, say goodbye to what we were supposed to be, what we could have been, or we get us back to the way we're supposed to be. This is the time. There's no seat out there in this country. There's no place for you to sit. You're going to be on another. And for those of you that are not y'all, but for those people that believe, well, we're just not going to do nothing. You are doing something when you do nothing. This is a fight for the future of our country. And I know, because I get the emails, I get the texts from y'all. I know some of you are saying, Larry, if you've got stuff on Hillary, get it out. No, I will get it out when I know it's time to get it out, when it will do, hopefully, the most good. But I want y'all to remember this. If I break something about Hillary today, it would be buried so far that nobody would ever even hear it. And then when it did come up, or if it came up in the campaign of Trump, it would be discarded out of hand, and that's old news. It's already been proven to be false. Folks, I know how this game is played. I know how they do it. I know what they're going to do. What we have to do is be smart. We have to use the skills that hopefully I still possess, I hope. By the way, just got 100 from Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank God. Thank you, honey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much.
The guys, I'm telling you, right now where we stand, Hillary is not yet the nominee for the Democratic Party. She's not yet. She's presumptive, but she ain't it yet. Donald Trump is not yet the nominee for the RNC. He is the I'm hearing that all of a sudden, there you go now, don't. He is the presumptive candidate, but he's not it. And guys, I'm telling you, we'd all better hold our powder dry until that meeting 6 days before the convention. You know, there's a reason, and it's not just chance, that, for example, the phone guy or internet guy, that they backed out of supporting the convention. There's a reason the big traditional donors for the RNC have backed out, that they're not paying in, they're not buying in and helping Trump yet. There's a reason, because they're going to use that. The establishment that don't want Trump to be the candidate, they're going to use all of this to block him from being the candidate. Money. I told y'all yesterday what Donald Trump's got to do. Now, by the way, I found out that Larry Sabato, the head of the political science department, University of Virginia, I've known him for years. Larry told people, I think it was on Fox, he warned people, get this, folks, he warned people, the polls are all wrong today. Don't believe the polls that you see today. And when he was queried about that, he said it all breaks down to basically 40, 40, 20. Right now, it's 40, 40, 20. So any poll you see outside of that is what's called an outsider. It's wrong. It cannot be right. But where Trump, as I've tried to warn, is hurting, in the primary, Trump keeps falling back and saying in the primary he won with very, very little money. Yes, he did. And he didn't need money. It came to him free. It ain't going to happen this time in the general election. He's running against Hillary. And the media is going to be on her side big time. So when you look at the 20%, as I have stated, that Trump has got to get to be able to win, he's going to have to get to that 20% that typically don't care, or what's called undecided. To get to them, folks, he's going to have to buy it. That means he's going to have to buy ads. And he's going to have to pay money to buy those ads. He's not going to have the news media doing it for him this time. And I just don't think that has soaked into him. We've got to make it soak in. Because, folks, we're talking about $1 billion. $1 billion is what it's going to take to defeat Hillary Rodham Clinton. And I've looked at it every which way I can, but that's what it's going to take. Now, how does that connect to me? Well, remember this. The stuff that I have to get out about Hillary, not to the 50% or 40% that love her, because it ain't going to make no difference. Not to the 40% that already hate her, because they already hate her. They're not going to hate her more. They already hate her. That 20%, the only way we have, you and I, of getting my stuff out about Hillary, so that 20% of people that are going to actually decide this election find out about it, folks, that's through Trump. That's why Trump's had to be the candidate for us. He's the only candidate I know that once he gets in the race, firmly in the race, I believe, because he is such a fighter, I believe Hillary and the attacks on him that she will make him so mad that he will take our stuff and make it a part of his campaign. Certainly his advertising. That's why we've got to work. We've got to work to make Trump understand. Get out there now. Get the money you need now. Because we're literally, we're literally just a couple of 3 weeks away. Careful. Well, I just got word from Alden. Let me look. We got one in from Elizabeth for the 100. Thank you. And it's okay, Carla. Carla said she couldn't today. I understand. Folks, I just need your help. I hope you can hear my voice and just know this is for all. This is for the game. This is for the big game. This is for it all.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to get it right, because as Larry said, this is it. This is our last chance. If you want your country back, this is it. Unfortunately, there is not going to be a second chance. If Hillary Clinton goes in, it's game over. The life you know, the life you've known, you'll never know again. The life you know today will seem great. As difficult as it is under this administration, and as rotten as it is, a life under her is going to be even more hellish. It's the only way I can put it. You got to give 110% effort going forward, because this is it. The nation's on the line.
Well, can't be said any better than that, guys. I'm telling you. So please help me. And know this. When it's time, if I can, if I'm able, that's why I'm having to ask y'all to help. If I can and if I'm able, I'll be there to make Hillary commit of her funds that she is spending and planning to spend to trash Trump. I'm going to make her spend that defending herself from the scandals, or whatever you want to call them, the things that I'll bring out. Please believe me on that. That's what I did to Bill Clinton. I didn't have the wherewithal to get him impeached. I had to do it the way I did. And it will work again. I know what I'm doing when it comes to this stuff. I don't know how to say it any other way. Well, Alden, thank you. Alden sent 10. Jerry, thank you, sent 50. Thank you all, especially you, Alden, because you do so much with the program, bringing it to us and all of that. And by the way, folks, if you want to call in now, you can. 501-499-6022. I know yesterday we didn't get to a lot of people that were calling in. A 1 hour formatted program, Greg, I think you know this. A 1 hour formatted program is not a real good call-in format because the time just flies by.
Yes, it does. And you've known from day one that we would give you as much time as you needed. So anytime you want more, you need more, you got more, dear friend. Anytime.
I know. Thank you. So if you want to call in today, if you didn't get in yesterday, if you've got something to say or comment, please call in 501-499-6022. This is about the country. And we're an army. You may think we're not a big army. You may even think we're not big enough. But I'm going to ask Greg here in a second to give us justification from the Bible. See, the Bible's one of those unique things that I guess you could say I discovered. It's been here forever. I'm just too stupid to pay attention. We got 5 in from Susan. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank God. The thing about the Bible is this. It's real. And everything that it is prophesied has either already happened or is happening now or is going to happen. Now, does that mean that we don't need to do nothing? Because I hear that a lot. People say, well, there's nothing we can do. It's in God's hands and he'll handle it. No, No. Now, God has a plan and it will be his plan. But he expects every one of us to get up and fight, to stand and fight. If you don't believe that, look at all the stories in the Bible. We have to do our part. And when you think that we're not enough with our 7,500 to 10,000, when you think that's not enough, remember the entire Revolutionary War was won with less than 4% of the people actually participating. Oh, hey, back during the Revolutionary War, believe me, they had it just like we do today. Janet just sent 10. Dixie, thank you. I mean, you understand that, folks? Back during the Revolutionary War, everybody in this country wasn't all saddled up and into this thing. It was a small handful of people that did the heavy lifting. Where we are today, we're that small group of people. And we've got an awful heavy lift ahead of us. A heavy lift. Now, Greg, in the Bible, it shows time and time again, I think, where I got this from Carla. Thank the people for helping Larry today. Yes, Carla said thank y'all for helping. Greg, are there places in the Bible where God has used small, relatively small, numbered armies against big armies?
Oh, absolutely, Larry. You know, you and I were discussing that off air just a few days ago, in fact. And, you know, God, man tends to think, okay, Larry, I know you've got a caller named Danny. Let me get through this story real quick. Danny, hang on for us 1 second, and we'll get right to your call. Thank you for calling, Danny. Yeah, throughout the Bible, God makes it very clear that he is a God of order. He's a God of numbers. You know, everything written in the Bible lines up numerically. But he is also a God who created literally the world out of nothing. And so he's the only one that can do that. But when it comes to numbers, God has always used the small things, the small numbers, just like the fighting forces, you know.
Yep. Just like the story I told about Gideon.
Absolutely.
You know, God made him get down to 300 and Gideon's going, you're nuts. Well, I don't think he told God you're nuts, but he probably
you know, he thought it.
He thought it, yeah. Well, let's do this. Danny, you're on the line. Danny, are you there, my friend?
Yes. How you doing, Larry?
Hey, Danny.
Hey, I wanted to call yesterday. You know, it was hard to get called in on, but I just wanted to kind of say something to pick you up because, you're talking about the Bible. Everything in the Bible is real in one way or another. And every story in the Old Testament comes back to play in a lot of our cases. And I want everybody to read the story about Samson, how Samson got down and how you are having a hard time right now with your health. And you have sometimes days that you feel like you can't go on. Well, remember, Samson got his hair cut, and he gave in real easy. And next thing you know, he was at the end of his rope. And then what the Lord do, before Samson give up, he just asked the Lord one more time. He said, Lord, just one time, let me fulfill the needs you've got for me to do. And remember what he did. He got between the pillars, and he got between the pillars, and the Lord blessed him that his last act the Lord let him do, he was able to destroy more Philistines at the last moment than he ever did in his whole lifetime. So, keep your head up and don't give up, because the Lord's got his hands on what's going on. And he's using you for a reason, and Satan's trying to stop you completely. But you keep getting your health back, and believe me, we're all praying for you, and we're all behind you. Hey, there's a lot of things fixing to happen, and the Lord's got his hands on all of it. You just keep your head up, and you keep your strength up, because you've got many people behind you praying. And I believe the Lord's got his hand fully on you, and you can, if you listen to how Donald Trump is talking, you can sense, if anybody that trusts the Lord, if you can sense just how he is talking, he's using the name of God more and more and more. Mm-hmm. If you just listen how he's talking, you can see the Lord working through him also. And
well, Danny, you're absolutely right. There are two men that flank Mr. Trump, not necessarily on a daily basis. Mark Burns is one of them, the black evangelist who heads up a TV network, but Dr. Jeffers there in Dallas as well. So, Donald Trump is getting fed spiritually. And Donald Trump is a kind of man, though, Danny, and to our audience, that he is not going to give away his spiritual hand, because the media would literally crucify him just like they did Jesus. But I can tell you, I believe, and I think many of us also believe, that, a man's heart plans his way, the Lord directs his steps. And God has given us a glimpse through the Obama administration of what happens when we turn to idols and we turn away from God, and we don't do what we need to do. But he's going to give us restoration through turning back to him, turning back to God. And he'll use Donald Trump, an ordinary yet extraordinary man of money and talent, but not necessarily one that the religious right embraces. But that meeting that was in New York, where he was supposed to meet with 400, he actually met with 1,000. Naturally, the people that headed up that meeting weren't going to just come out and endorse Donald, because they're the religious right. They're almost, I don't want to really tell you what I think about them, but there were some great men at that meeting too, like Franklin Graham. I know Franklin Graham. I've sat with Franklin Graham. I've prayed with Franklin Graham. And I can tell you that he's not backing Donald Trump openly, but I sure will be willing to bet when he goes to pull the lever, he won't be pulling that lever for Hillary Clinton.
Well, Danny, since you're on the line, can I interrupt here a second, Danny?
Yes.
Just for the audience. Danny came to see me, right?
Yes.
Now, I want everybody to listen to this, because I can't see all of you. I can't. It's just not possible. Danny came up, gave me some money, bless his heart, more than he should have, he and his wife. But Danny, what worries me is a lot of people out there. There's two Larry Nicholses. Greg, you and I have talked about this for years. There's two Larry Nicholses. There's this one that people perceive me to be. 10 foot tall, tall buildings in a single bound. If that's what you think of me, you're wrong. You're wrong. Danny, as a man, as a human being, you saw me. Did I look special?
No, you didn't look special. You want to think you're 10 foot tall, but you're doing what you can that a 10-foot person would be able to do, but you're far from 10 foot. Your health has brought you down a lot, but hey, that doesn't mean you're not standing 10 foot tall, because what you're doing, it takes more of a man than what a lot of people call a man to be. And it takes strength and it takes guts to take a stand in what you're doing. And nowadays, if you stand for God now, you better be a man. You better be a woman, because they're all going to point fingers. Like sometimes them fingers is worth getting pointed for. Say the Lord got fingers pointed at him a lot. And, no, you doing the best you can. I was really kind of shocked how small in size you are because of your health and everything. But, hey, in my eyes, you was a lot bigger man than a lot of tall, healthy men that I've seen, because you're holding on.
Well, Danny, I will tell you this much. Larry, like my dad, they were both Green Berets in the Army. And, I guarantee you now they have a few 6'5" Green Beret steroid monsters out there. But it's those little guys you got to watch out for, because you never know what's behind door number one, and you can knock them down health wise, but only way to get rid of a Green Beret is to kill him, and good luck with that too. So,
I will say, everybody that can help Larry, because what he is doing, he's doing from the heart. And
Amen.
Sometimes we have to be brought down to be raised up. But we have to now, sometimes it's hard to hold yourself up, and you've got to have other people help hold you up. And if you can't do it money-wise, do it prayer-wise. And just let him know that you're behind him. Because a lot of times, just say, "Go, Larry," means more. Just to know, just like he's gotten on the radio, he just wants to know people's backing him and listening to him, that he's not just talking to open air. And we all need encouragement. And we all have to have each other. We can't do this by ourselves.
That's right.
You're so
Danny,
right.
Thank you, my buddy. Folks, I just wanted you to know there's nothing special about me. I'm normal. I'm regular. A little sick, but regular. But folks, it's about our country and what our country was founded on. It wasn't 8-foot giants. It was regular people. It wasn't military geniuses. It was regular people. People that were willing to walk off the farm for something they believed in, leave their families to maintain and keep the farm. That was an incredible burden back in that time, an incredible burden. But they did it. And that's what I ask of all of us. That's what I ask of all of us. Everybody bring to the fight what you can. And Greg, I know there are people that can send $20, $30, $40, $50, $100 or more or whatever. I know that's there. But what I don't see is 7,000 plus people that are just willing to send $1. Well, what is that about? Why do I want to see 7,000 people send $1? It's not about the money to me. That act is for me to see that there are 7,000 people that have skin in the game. Skin in the game. It's one thing to sit back and listen to this program. It's one thing to sit back and watch 24-hour news, Fox or whatever you watch. and to be educated and then go from this program to other programs and learn all of this stuff that's out there in the alternative media. That's all well and good. But if you're out there and you think that constitutes fighting to save and protect our country, you're wrong. You're wrong. Now, when a basketball team or a football team or whatever team plays ball, you've heard it said over and over and over, the players on the field, those people up in the stands, that it helps to know there are people out there cheering for them and supporting them. I'm sorry?
I would like to make a shout out to people when you can get a chance. I would like to say something.
Oh, okay. But to me, folks, what's important is we all don't get to be up in the stands this time. We got to get on the field. We all got to get there. Alden's got something. Alden, are you there, my friend?
Yes, I'm here. We need to look at it like, all right, this is how I look at it, at least. I look at it as a future investment. This might be selfish of me, but I literally look at this as a future investment for my country, and it does benefit me. Yes, Larry has the answers, but that will help me if he gets them out, if we're able to keep him alive, if we're able to do this. Like, I've given so much, and I'm happy to give. I really am. He means a lot to me, and I really don't even know him that much. Like, I've never met him personally. I've never, done anything with him, but just the work he does means the world to me because he wants to save our country just as much as I do. So, if you want to look at it as a future investment for our country, if you need something to hold on to, there's things out there that you can hold on to. But, we really need to come together, not just for Larry's health, but for our country. If we lose our country, what do we have left?
That is it in a nutshell. Now, folks, listen to Alden. Alden's 27 years old. He's got a life ahead of him. This young man's fighting for his very life right now. Every program he puts on that he comes here and lets us come on the air, every program he puts up on YouTube, he's fighting. He's fighting for the future he hopes he will have. And if we lose this battle, he won't have that. And I'll guarantee you this, folks. If we lose this battle, I got this from Mary Ellen. She said, I agree with Alden. Now, I bet a lot of you do. If we lose this battle, I hate to say it this way, lose this battle, I'd rather be me left on this earth than Alden and many of you.
Yeah, you're right, Larry. There's no two ways about it. And we're in this fight. We have to take it seriously. Maybe going back to 2001 during 9/11, you just knew standing there we were in serious trouble. A lot of people, wanted to see things change, and we all hoped, but it only unfortunately brought hope and change. And unless things are taken down from the top and we get someone like Donald Trump himself under God's mighty hand, we return to God first, he'll give us the right leader. And that's where we will win this battle.
Well, with that, folks, I'm sorry about today's program. I didn't feel very good, but Greg, we got it over, and we're out of time. Help if you can. We didn't get there, but thanks to those that have and did help. And good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, and Greg keeps helping me. We'll be here tomorrow, I hope. See you then. Thanks, Greg.
You got it.
Over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I've heard of, one in a lullaby.